Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the glamorous and relentlessly dramatic world of Los Angeles' fashion dynasties. Today is a magnificent day to explore the intricate webs of loyalty and betrayal that define our favorite characters. Let us step right into the heart of Forrester Creations, where the tension is thick enough to cut with a pair of designer shears. The halls of Forrester Creations have long been a sanctuary of high fashion, a place where silk, satin, and boundless ambition weave together to create global empires. Yet, beneath the glossy veneer of success and the dazzling flashes of runway cameras, a deep and insidious rot has begun to take hold. The heir and the executive, the relentless war for supremacy has finally breached the inner sanctum of the family, transforming a business dispute into a deeply personal tragedy that threatens to leave no survivors in its wake. It is within this suffocating, toxic atmosphere that Ridge Forrester finds himself completely paralyzed, a man caught dead in the crossfire of a war he desperately wished to avoid. Standing outside the heavy, intricately carved oak door of the executive office, Ridge is frozen in place, unable to take a single step forward or backward. The ambient, creative hum of the design studio fades entirely into the background. Inside that room are the two. Through the narrow crack in the doorway, the sound of Hope Logan Spencer's voice pierces the silence like a jagged shard of glass. This is not the voice of the gentle, accommodating, and perpetually optimistic young woman Ridge has known and loved for years. The Hope who always sought compromise, the Hope who swallowed her pride and suppressed her own desire for the sake of family harmony, has completely vanished. In her place stands a woman entirely consumed by a fiery. Her sobs are not born of weakness or fragility. They are the explosive, uncontrollable release of years of pent-up frustration, professional marginalization, and the agonizing pain of being constantly sidelined and disrespected by Steffi Forrester Finnegan. Ridge listens, his heart pounding a frantic, terrifying rhythm against his ribs, as Hope outlines the sheer brutality of her current reality. Steffi's latest dictatorial decree, to completely halt the Hope for the Future line, yet again in favor of prioritizing Eric's couture, has been the final, fatal blow to Hope's loyalty. For years, Hope poured her very soul, her boundless creativity, and her tireless dedication into building HFDF into a beacon of modern, conscientious fashion. To have it ripped away, shelved like an insignificant afterthought by a woman who has always viewed her as a... The transformation of Hope Logan Spencer is terrifying to witness, even through the barrier of a closed door. Ridge can hear the steely, unforgiving resolve hardening beneath her tears. The pain of Steffi's relentless suppression has acted as a brutal crucible, burning away the soft, forgiving edges of Hope's personality and forging a weapon of pure, unadulterated ambition. She is no longer willing to be the sacrificial lamb on the altar of Forrester Creations' internal politics. The allure of the rival Logan brand, newly minted and currently basking in a monumental global success of Katie, and then comes the moment that sends a literal jolt of electricity down Ridge's spine, an ultimatum so cold, so absolute, and so devastating that it seems to suck all the oxygen straight out of the hallway. Hope, her voice trembling with emotion but laced with an unbreakable iron will, forces her mother into an impossible, nightmarish corner. It is a definitive declaration of war, not just against Steffi or the company, but against the very fabric of their family. Ridge stands dead still, the immense weight of Hope's words crushing the breath from his lungs. The sheer magnitude of the threat is staggering and difficult to process. This is not a simple temper tantrum, a fleeting moment of professional frustration, or a dramatic plea for attention. This is a definitive drawing of battle lines in the sand. Hope is demanding that Brooke sever her professional and personal ties to the Forrester legacy, to abandon the empire she helped. If Brooke refuses, if she chooses the comfort of her marriage and her history of Forrester, Hope promises a complete, total, and permanent estrangement. Inside the office, Brooke Logan Forster is struck completely dumb by the sheer ferocity and gravity of her daughter's demand. For decades, Brooke has navigated the treacherous, unpredictable waters of the Forster-Logan rivalry, often acting as the vital bridge between her profound, enduring love for Ridge and her fierce, unwavering devotion to her family. Brooke is suddenly, violently trapped between the defining pillars of her existence. On one side is Ridge, her destiny, her great love, the man with whom she has built a life of unparalleled passion, heartache, and enduring partnership. On the other side is Hope, her flesh and blood, her precious child who is currently bleeding out emotionally on the corporate floor. The agony in Brooke's prolonged silence is palpable even to Ridge, who can practically feel his wife's heart tearing violently down the middle. Brooke's maternal instincts, always a potent, overwhelming, and driving force in her life, are roaring to the surface, demanding that she protect her wounded cub at all costs. She has watched Hope suffer under Steffi's authoritarian rule for far too long. Silently, she has seen the light fade from Hope's eyes every time the hope for the future line was pushed to the back burner to elevate a Forrester. The primal urge to wrap her arms around her daughter, to validate her immense pain, and to walk out of that building in a blaze of righteous fury is intoxicatingly strong. It would mean aligning herself completely with Katie and Bill, a duo currently utilizing stolen designs from Eric Forster himself to build their globally broadcasted success. It would mean declaring open warfare on her husband's family, actively participating in a rival empire designed to crush the very legacy Ridge is sworn to protect and uphold. Brooke is forced to confront a horrifying, earth-shattering reality. Her love for Ridge, no matter how deep, no matter how destined, might not be enough to bridge this impossible chasm. For Ridge, the realization is a physical blow, a sickening wave of nausea and dread that washes over him as he leans his heavy weight against the wall. He had foolishly, naively believed that he could remain a neutral party in the escalating hostilities between Steffi and Hope. He had thought that by stepping back, by allowing Steffi to exercise her executive authority as co-CEO, the storm would eventually pass without causing permanent damage. He failed entirely to see that Steffi's ruthless corporate decisions were inflicting deep, psychological wounds on Hope. Wounds that have now festered into a terminal rot threatening his own marriage and the stability of his entire world. The electricity coursing through Ridge's veins is not just the shock of the moment. It is the terrifying, paralyzing jolt of impending doom. He realizes with absolute, terrifying clarity that his family is standing on the precipice of an irreparable collapse. The foundation of their lives, carefully constructed over decades of forgiveness, compromise, and enduring love, is crumbling violently beneath their feet. This betrayal, this grim ultimatum, hurts far more than any fashion war they have ever waged in the press or on the runway. It is not about hemlines, marketing budgets, or international distribution anymore. It is about the fundamental loyalty of a mother to her child and the devastating collateral damage that loyalty will inevitably inflict. Ridge's mind races frantically as he considers the broader, catastrophic implications of Hope's defection. If Hope leaves, she will not go quietly into the night. She will take her immense talent, her relentless drive, and quite possibly key personnel like Deke Sharp directly to the Logan brand. Katie and Bill, already riding the unprecedented high of a massively successful launch party, would welcome Hope with open arms, eagerly weaponizing her against Forster Creations. The Logan brand would transform overnight from a nuisance into an existential threat, fueled by the righteous anger of the marginalized Logan women. The entire fashion industry would watch in awe as the ultimate civil war erupts on the runways of Los Angeles. But the corporate fallout pales in comparison to the profound personal devastation looming over Ridge. He knows Brooke better than he knows himself. He knows the fierce, unyielding, and fiercely protective nature of her maternal love. If forced to choose between a husband who passively allowed his daughter to crush her child's dreams and a daughter who is begging for her mother's support and validation, Brooke's ultimate decision is a terrifying, heartbreaking gamble. Ridge is suddenly overwhelmed by the agonizing truth that love cannot solve all conflicts. The romantic destiny he shares with Brooke is completely powerless against the raw, primal demand of hope's ultimatum. As the heavy sobs inside the office begin to subside, replaced by a thick, expectant, and suffocating silence, Ridge knows that the clock is ticking down to zero. The moment Brooke answers, the die will be cast, and their lives will be forever altered. He is paralyzed by his own inaction, unsure if he should burst into the room and attempt to mediate the impossible, or walk away and let the chips fall where they inevitably may. Every option feels like a profound betrayal. Every word spoken from this point forward will carry the heavy weight of a death sentence for their blended family. The Forrester empire, once a shining symbol of unity and artistic triumph, has become a gilded cage, and hope has just handed Brooke the key to burn it all down to the ground. At the very center of this unfolding emotional cataclysm is Daphne Rose Walton, a woman who is currently drowning in the silent, suffocating grief of severe infertility. For weeks, the audience has watched Daphne struggle with the agonizing reality of her empty nursery, a stark and devastating contrast to the joyous family planning she initially shared with Carter Walton. The psychological toll of this inability to conceive has been slowly eroding her spirit from the inside out. Every passing day, every negative test, and every innocent remark about the future has acted as a dagger to her heart. Daphne has been trapped in a paralyzing emotional state, unable to reconcile her deepest maternal desires with the harsh biological realities she is facing. This profound sorrow has only been cruelly exacerbated by the looming, omnipresent threat of other characters on the canvas easily experiencing the miracle of pregnancy, sparking an intense, uncontrollable jealousy and a bitter heartbreak that Daphne can barely contain behind her carefully constructed public smile. Driven by a desperate need to fix her perceived inadequacies without burdening the man she loves, Daphne made the agonizing decision to pursue secret infertility treatments. The sterile, cold environment of the medical clinic became her private purgatory, a place where she faced invasive procedures, hormonal fluctuations, and the crushing weight of statistical probabilities entirely alone. She believed she was protecting Carter, shielding his earnest, hopeful heart from the terrifying possibility that their dreams of a family might be permanently shattered. However, this isolation only magnified her psychological crisis. The burden of carrying such a monumental secret, compounded by the physical and emotional exhaustion of the medical treatments, pushed Daphne to the absolute brink of a nervous breakdown. She became a walking raw nerve, hypervigilant and profoundly vulnerable to any perceived slight or judgment from the outside world. It is within this fragile, combustible environment that Brooke Logan Forrester inadvertently steps into the fray. Brooke, a woman whose entire existence has been defined by her fierce, sometimes overbearing maternal instincts and her uncanny ability to find herself at the center of other people's dramas, stumbled upon Daphne's closely guarded secret purely by accident. Perhaps it was a misplaced medical document, a hush phone call overheard in the corridors of Forrester Creations, or a moment of unguarded physical distress that Brooke's sharp eyes caught. The exact mechanics of the discovery are less important than the immediate, visceral reaction it provoked within the Logan matriarch. Brooke did not see a private boundary that needed to be respected. Instead, she saw a fellow woman in deep, agonizing pain, a kindred spirit suffering in the shadows who desperately needed a guiding hand to pull her back into the light. To understand Brooke's subsequent actions, one must delve deeply into the psychological makeup of a woman who has weathered decades of profound personal trauma, devastating losses, and catastrophic family crises. Brooke has never been a passive observer in the game of life. Her default setting is to intervene, to fix, to nurture, and to wrap her arms around the broken pieces of those she cares about, regardless of whether that embrace is welcome. When she realized the depth of Daphne's infertility struggles, Brooke's mind immediately flashed back to her own moments of profound despair and the times she felt utterly alone in the world. She genuinely believed that her vast life experience, her survival of countless emotional shipwrecks, uniquely positioned her to offer Daphne the exact brand of comfort and solidarity that the younger woman so desperately required. In Brooke's mind, intervention was not a choice. It was a moral imperative born of pure, unadulterated empathy. Armed with these noble but profoundly misguided intentions, Brooke orchestrated a private moment to approach Daphne. The setting was carefully chosen, perhaps a quiet corner of the Forrester mansion or a secluded office after hours, designed by Brooke to foster vulnerability and open communication. Brooke leaned in, her voice dripping with the kind of soft, maternal concern that has comforted her own children through countless tragedies. She spoke of resilience, of the unpredictable journey of motherhood, and gently revealed her knowledge of Daphne's secret treatments. Brooke offered her shoulder to cry on, extending an olive branch woven from her own past traumas, fully expecting Daphne to collapse into her arms in a cathartic release of shared feminine sorrow. She anticipated gratitude. She anticipated a bonding moment that would forge a deep, unbreakable connection between them. What Brooke fundamentally failed to anticipate was the sheer, volatile force of Daphne's psychological defense mechanisms. To a woman who is already drowning in feelings of inadequacy, biological failure, and profound vulnerability, Brooke's well-meaning words did not sound like comfort. They sounded like a death knell to her dignity. Daphne did not hear solidarity. She heard the condescending, pitying tone of a matriarch who had successfully raised a dynasty, looking down upon a broken woman who could not even fulfill the basic biological imperative she so desperately desired. The revelation that her deepest, darkest, and most painful secret had been uncovered by the town's most notorious gossip and meddler sent a shockwave of absolute terror and defensive rage through Daphne's system. The protective walls she had so carefully constructed around her fragile psyche instantly hardened into an impenetrable fortress of hostility. The clash between these two women in that moment was a masterclass in tragic miscommunication. Brooke, operating from a place of boundary-less compassion, pressed harder, trying to break through Daphne's sudden icy exterior, convinced that the anger was merely a mask for the pain. But for Daphne, this persistence was the ultimate violation. She viewed Brooke's intervention not as an act of love, but as a rude, invasive, and aggressively arrogant intrusion into the most sacred and terrifying corner of her private life. Daphne fiercely rejected Brooke's olive branch, her words sharp and cutting, designed to force the older woman to retreat. She demanded privacy, she demanded respect, and, above all, she demanded that Brooke take the knowledge of her infertility treatments and bury it forever. Daphne walked away from the encounter feeling violated, stripped of her agency, and deeply resentful of the Logan matriarch. If the tragedy had ended there, it might have remained a quiet, simmering resentment between two women. However, the universe of the bold and the beautiful rarely allows secrets of this magnitude to remain buried, especially when Brooke Logan Forrester is the custodian of the truth. In a moment of catastrophic carelessness, the inevitable occurred. During a seemingly innocuous conversation with Carter Walton, Brooke suffered a devastating slip of the tongue. Perhaps Carter was expressing his unwavering optimism about their future family, his face glowing with the earnest, tragic hopefulness that has defined his relationship with Daphne. Overwhelmed by the painful irony of his ignorance and her own inability to filter her thoughts, Brooke let slip a reference to the medical treatments, the doctors, the severe psychological toll it was taking on Daphne. The words hung in the air, a bell that could not be unrung, instantly shattering the delicate illusion of Carter's perfect, hopeful world. For Carter Walton, the The revelation was nothing short of a seismic emotional earthquake. This is a man who has always prided himself on being the ultimate supportive partner, the rock upon which his loved ones can build their lives. To suddenly discover that the woman he loves has been suffering in profound, agonizing silence, subjecting her body and mind to grueling medical treatments without his knowledge, was a devastating blow to his core. His previous reassurances to Daphne, his gentle encouragements about the baby-making process, were suddenly painted in a tragic, almost mocking light. He realized that while he had been dreaming of a shared future, Daphne had been fighting a solitary, terrifying war in the trenches of infertility. The betrayal he felt was not just directed at the universe for their biological struggles, but profoundly at the secrecy that had walled him off from his partner's deepest pain. The immediate fallout between Carter and Daphne was a storm of unprecedented proportions. The foundation of absolute trust and transparency that their relationship was built upon completely crumbled beneath their feet. When Carter confronted Daphne with the knowledge he had gleaned from Brooke, the resulting argument was a devastating collision of grief, betrayal, and shattered expectations. Their meticulously crafted family plans were instantly turned upside down. Carter felt entirely alienated, questioning what else Daphne might be hiding and why she did not trust him enough to share her burden. Daphne, meanwhile, felt cornered and exposed, her worst fears realized as the man she loved looked at her with a mixture of heartbreak and profound confusion. The sanctuary of their